All right, we are back. This is Techmath1. We're looking at packet 5, and it's kind of A through D, but we're really going to skip through this thing. They designed this packet a long time ago, and they basically made it to use a graphing calculator, but it was when the graphing calculators were TI-85 and TI-86s. And so most of us have an 83 and 84. And a lot of the programming that you're going to do for the calculator, it's just built into the 83 and 84. So we're not really going to do calculator programming. You can skip to page A7 and we can just take a look at one problem there. We'll look at 19A. So this is packet 5. And we're looking at A7. On the bottom, it says A7 on the page. And so it says T sub 1 is equal to MS T sub 2 minus H all over MS. And then they tell you M is equal to 50, and S is equal to 19.7, and T sub 2 is equal to 10, and H is equal to 65.5. And basically, they just want you to substitute in everything. Oh, and T sub 1, find T sub 1. So they want me to find T sub 1, and they gave me all of this information. So 50 times 19.7 times 10 minus 65.5 over 50 times 19.7. And so what you're going to do, you can put this all in your calculator in one shot. But because there's multiplication and then subtraction and then division and then multiplication again, you would just have to put it in brackets or parentheses and then a divide by. So if I'm keying this in, it's going to look like this. Parenthesis 50 times 19.7 times 10 minus 65.5 end parenthesis divided by parenthesis 50 times 19.7 end parenthesis, and then hit enter. And so when you do that, we should get 19.93. Let's take a look at what that looks like on a calculator. So 83, 84 is what I expect that you have, or plus, or sometimes it has silver edition. They've got a few more bells or whistles. I think the newer ones now are color. So we would hit, there is the parenthesis button right there, parenthesis, and then 50 times 19.7 times 10 minus 65.5 end parenthesis. And so just so you know, it's not all, if you got a calculator like mine, it continues on the next line, and that's fine. And then the divided by sign, and then 50 times 19.7 end parenthesis. So this is what we have on our readout, and then hit enter. And there we go. We get 9., that's not zooming in there. 9.9335. There, it fixed it. All right, so that's, I don't think anything too earth-shattering for anybody. I think you likely knew how to do that on your calculator already. Usually technology, when it comes to calculators, isn't throwing too many people off. Let's jump into square roots. How about square roots like on A9? Let's look at 25C. That's on A9 on the bottom of the page, A9 there. So D is equal to the square root of PL over R, and then they give you everything except for D. So they tell you P is equal to 14.5, L is equal to 27.2, and R is equal to 18.8. All right, and so we're going to find that. And so again, when we key that in, we're going to key it in as into our calculator. You're going to hit second and then the x squared button, which will give you a square root with a parenthesis. And then you just do 14.5 times 27.2 divided by 18.8 end parenthesis. And so you can type it all into one shot and get it done. Let me demonstrate again. Oh boy. That's always fun, huh? Okay, yay, and I didn't swear. Okay, so here we are. Second. So we hit second and then the x squared button right there. And that brings up the square root with the parenthesis. And then 14.5 times 27.2 divided by 18.8 end parenthesis. And so that's what it looks like typed in, and you just hit enter. And 4.58. Again, I think it's unlikely that you haven't already seen these things on your calculator. So let's jump to A11. We'll look at the cube root. So you can do, you're not stuck with just square roots. It does have a dedicated square root key where it's second and then x squared. But you can do cube root, you can do fourth root, you can do fifth root. And again, depending on how fancy your calculator is, some of them actually let you put the index in where it belongs. Other ones, I've got an older one, but if I want to take the third root of 1940, or 19,400, there's two ways to do it on the calculator. And I'll show you what I think is a shortcut instead of actually finding it on there with the third root. Like I said, some of them will actually have that little box right there like that. And all you have to do is type a 3 in there and then put the number right there. And that will be under math. I'll show you how to get there. Mine does not have that. Mine has this key. And so I have to put a 3 in front of that first. And then it does it. So here, let me see where that is. And that's one way to find it. Oh, and this one actually has a third root key itself. I'm going to do it like this. So you could do it for third root, fourth root. You could even do it for square root if you wanted to. But I don't want to do it that way, obviously. What you do, so if you're going to do it with an older calculator, you're going to hit 3 and then math. And then the very first thing is math, it says right there. And then you go down to, now look, this calculator actually has a third root in there, but I'm going to do it the long way, the third root of x. So that is the third root of 19,400. All right, and then in parentheses, oh, I didn't even put parentheses on it. And so it tells me 26.87. That's great. There is a quicker way. I actually don't like doing it that way. I'll do it like this. If you take 19,400 to the power, you use the little power key, and then do a parenthesis 1 divided by 3. So if it's the third root, you take it to the 1/3 power. If it's the fourth root, you take it to the 1/4 power. If it's the fifth root, you take it to the 1/5 power. But the upside of doing that is you actually hit less keystrokes. It's 19,400 to the power. So that's its own little button right there, the caret. And now you do have to do, in the older ones, you do have to do the parenthesis 1 divided by 3. Again, on the newer ones, it's even less coding because when you hit that caret key on the newer ones, like the Silver Plus and stuff, it pops it up there. And then you don't have to do the parentheses even. You just do 1 divided by 3. And that gives you the exact same answer. You can see it. All right. And so I prefer to do roots, fourth roots, fifth roots, anything that isn't a square root like this. Because then I don't have to find the key and the drag downs, and it's just faster. All right, and you get to put it in after the number. You don't have to pre-put in like this. You have to put the 3 first before you hit that. Or if they wanted the fifth root, you'd have to put a 5 first before you hit the little X thing. All right. So I think that's easier. Do not worry about doing the we're not going to write any programs to be saved in the calculator. All right. They do have some that you can download and stuff like that if you want, but we're not going to worry about that. All right, so B is really, again, just, I guess they're saying, look, if you have something in scientific notation, you can type that into your calculator and it'll kick out answers sometimes in scientific notation. And again, I think most of us know that, but let's look at on the bottom. It's B5 is the page, and we're looking at number 79. Let's look at A. 27.6 times 1.44 times 10 to the negative 12. So that's a really small number. We could convert that to standard form where we go decimal and then count out 11 zeros and then 144. And then take that times 27.6. But the object is to not do that. Let's make our calculator do all the grunt work. And so if we're going to make our calculator do the grunt work on one that's in scientific notation, we're going to hit the 27.6. And now we're going to do times, and then a parenthesis, 1.44 times 10 to the power negative 12, and paren. And then look at how it reads it out. It reads it out in scientific notation. So you got 3.9744 times 10 to the negative 11th. That's what that E means, all right? Some calculators will have a double E, but I think most of our calculators have that. Again, I think with the newer ones, this is what's on my readout. I do not put that down as an answer. That is in scientific notation, and I transform it into scientific notation. So do not give me calculator language. I need it like that, all right? So that's what I wanted to demonstrate on B. And then no, it isn't really much else I wanted to show you on here. They have one with like off of the homework where it's so we are not writing programs, so nothing out of C, nothing out of D. Maybe a little bit with graphing, where we can graph like let's jump to 5. D. Okay, here, D4. Let's go to D4. So that was B5 was the last one. Let's go to D4 in the packet. That's the second to last page in the 5 packet. And we'll graph something really quick. So we'll graph y sub 1 will equal x to the third minus 6x squared plus x minus 3. And so let's take a look at that. And I'll just really quickly walk you through that, what it's going to look like when you're using your graphing calculator. So here we are with our graphing calculator again. So this time we want to graph. So we're going to hit y equals right there at that button. So y equals, and I got stuff in there. If you got stuff in there, just hit clear. All right. We want x, that's the variable right there. X, and see it brings up x, and then the caret to the third power minus 6x. And now if you want, you could do caret 2, or you can just hit the squared button and it'll throw a squared on there for you. All right, and then plus x, and then minus 3. All right, make sure you hit minus 3 and not negative 3, all right? And then enter. All right, now it lets you do multiple graphs on the same plane. We don't want to do that. So, oh geez, that's really dusty. All right, so now we hit graph. Okay, and so now I have a weird window. If you have a weird window, you hit zoom, and then you go down to standard, and then hit enter. And that would give you a 10 by 10 window. And okay, so we don't quite see everything that's going on. It is a third degree equation. And so there's going to be 2 changes of direction. And so we've got that peak right there. And now if we want, we can change the window just a little bit. We can tweak it. It doesn't look like it needs to be changed from right to left. That looks like we grabbed most of it. But let's change our window. So I hit the window button, and now I go down X min and X max. Those are okay. The X axis was okay. It's the Y, the min. I need it smaller. So let's try 50 and then hit graph. Okay, and so now you get a better picture of what's going on there. That took it down to 50. If you want to balance it out a little bit, you can change your window again. And we can juice up the top to be 50 also for that Y max. And now it'll look a little more like that. All right. But now you got to keep in mind that we expanded the Y's, but we didn't do anything to the X's. And so what you're usually looking for when you're looking for the graph to sketch is you want to make sure you've got the maxes, the mins, in your picture. Now here's the other cool thing. If you want, we still have that on the graph. Now if you go to the second button, the yellow button, then it does everything in yellow. That's what the second does. So it basically uses the keys multiple times. So we got second, and then if you hit graph, that's actually table, see, because that's in yellow. And then it gives me that table. And so they ask on that worksheet, hey, why don't you tell me what Y is when X is 5 and 6 and 7? And you can click up and click down on the table. And you can always go back to the graph if you want. All right. So very basic graphing functions from the calculator, tables. And then it says, what window should I use? And we decided X max and min were negative 10 and 10, and Y max and min were negative 50 and 50. And I just left the scale 1. You could change the scale if you want. I did not. All right. So it does a good job. It depends on what you're looking at, but you can have the calculator. So let's say I wasn't wild about that graph. I can do second, zoom. Oh, that's format though. Just zoom, not second, just zoom. And then what about if I go down to zoom fit? Let's see what kind of window it gives me if I hit zoom fit. Okay, so that is a little misleading on the graph. It usually is worried when you zoom fit it. Let's look at the window. So the window they did was -10 to 10, but look at what they did to y. They made the y min -1600 and the y max 400, and that really altered what the graph kind of looks like. Let's go back to ours was better. So sometimes using the calculator functions to do the zooming isn't always the best, because this is a better idea of what that graph actually looks like. All right. They kind of distorted it by stretching it out. Okay. So that's all I wanted to talk about in the chapter 5, the packet 5. We're not going to do any programs and very basic graphing functions. And like I said, most of you on the first parts probably already knew how to use the calculator with the square roots and the different root functions. But just in case, now you got it on tape.